Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Ninja Gaiden Chapter 4.5. I've decided to break up the segments into acknowledging the pacing, I guess, of the original Ninja Gaiden as sort of the master chapter breakdown. And what we'll be doing with Sigma is I'll be calling Rachel sections, which are exclusive to Sigma, as 0.5s, essentially. So this will be Chapter 5 on Sigma, but you will notice that they desync on the next chapter when we put everything back together. Now, normally, as you've come to expect, it's been a comparison of the sort of four major ports of the game that I felt worthy of exploration. But for this particular part, I thought it would be extremely interesting to look at some additional footage. I won't be doing this for every single Sigma part, as it always seems to happen. I have to constantly replay the entire game up until these sections to then get the recordings I need. For example, the PC footage here is probably 2 years old, as opposed to the emulation one that you see in the bottom left. That one's quite a lot more recent. So really quickly, we have a lot to get through and not infinite amounts of time. So we'll get right to it. The original footage from the PS3, this was taken for my review. You'll notice the grading and the coloring's a little different. It was recorded on a different capture card. That might explain the coloring difference. In the top right, that is the PC Master Collection, the Steam edition of Ninja Gaiden Sigma. And then, as a huge star for this video, is the 30 FPS beast of a machine, the PlayStation TV, aka a television version of a Vita. I didn't think that I was going to be able to ever show off this footage, or that it was ever going to be worth my time. And it's something, at the end of the video, I'll spend a little bit of extra time going over. But if you're wondering, like, why does it look so grainy, so kind of choppy compared to the other footage, well, it's on a 1080p gaming device that was... it's an interesting part of the PlayStation's legacy, and I'm really blessed to have had the opportunity to sample it for the sake of showing it off. First, I don't think I'll be going back to it, so there's a bunch of details with that I'd like to get to. But I have this sort of incredible opportunity here. I didn't really initially think of including this, but now that I've done it, I stand by it. And part of what maybe discouraged me from finalizing this part was the fact that the emulator is RPCS3. It's an emulation of the PS3. It is upscaled to 4K. It's the exact same resolution of the Master Collection, and it runs incredibly. I really was absolutely blown away, because initially I was sort of looking at kind of the commercial releases. I wasn't really thinking about what maybe fans or personal projects might have gone on around this particular game. And not that Ninja Gaiden, this was specifically made to be emulator friendly, but it's a huge release on the PlayStation 3, so naturally you would think that they'd put a little bit of effort into making sure it runs well. And I can say, based on my experience, it's being able to choose any controller that you essentially want. I think it even has keyboard support. Upscaling, it runs just fine, similarly to the Master Collection. I would say that the soul-crushing part is that the emulation of the PS3 is, in my opinion, if we were comparing how to play Sigma specifically, I think the emulation kind of nails it, because the PC being the Steam release in particular, and the Master Collection having some finicky aiming issues, as well as additional sort of accessories and equipment that was in the Vita version. It's kind of a toss-up. It's good and bad. You know, the emulation version also isn't mod supported, especially not as intuitively and easily as you would like a Steam game. Obviously not the case for the PS4, PS5, and the PS and the Xbox, and their variety of iterations. When you compare those two, modding isn't, or those three, modding's not as necessarily readily comparable. So that's essentially it. It's sort of a low point for me in the project is recognizing that there are just incredible advantages to choosing to emulate Ninja Gaiden Sigma over a, you know, what was a pretty expensive port at the time. Maybe it's gone on sale, I'm not sure. I think that if it does go on sale, this is, I mean, it's a great way to re-experience Ninja Gaiden, and especially if you've never played, you have like no nostalgia for the Sigma version, you know, but you'd like to play Ninja Gaiden again. I don't necessarily think of it as a bad revisit, you know, a refresh, kind of a, you know, adds a lot more variety. And one thing I will say to Sigma's benefit, and this is kind of where we get into a bit of worms here, is that I think that the female sidekick sections across all of the Sigma games, well, I mean, Sigma 1, 2, and Razor's Edge, are incredible. Like, I really loved playing as Rachel. She's different than Ryu and has sort of like her flow in combat. I really wish that this could have been incorporated into the original game. But I wanted to really quick identify that going forward, you'll notice that the PS3 section, this is probably my first time ever trying to get through this section, and I just, you know, eventually figure out, oh, you can get up here. That's awesome. On the PC version, however, was, you know, quite a long ways between those two recordings, and I gave it a couple of good tries and I just assumed that it was a Ryu only selection. And then on the PS TV jump, I didn't have to do like a special Warhammer like little kick up to this section. This is definitely an intended area to get to with Rachel. It does give you kind of some bonus gear, as well as a bonus kind of combat arena to, you know, really get to test her out. And you know, I really enjoyed playing her, so this was a great little section to get to. So there's only going to be the 3 footage selections here. So just to quickly go back to Rachel and how she plays, you'll kind of notice that, like, even in her base upgrade, you'll see me employ this particular technique a lot, where I'll be blocking, and then all of a sudden I'll sort of slide over the shoulder of the enemy that I'm fighting. And I found this to be just this incredible fluid way of expressing yourself in the arena. It's great. And then of course the beheadings that can come from that same sort of combo. And I didn't really necessarily I don't have very strong memories of her in the late game, but I would say that it was a lot of fun to play as her. It broke up the pace, and it made it so that some of the stilted dialogue and the interactions between Ryu and Rachel came together a little better. It's not like the end of the world. I still love the original. You know, playing as Rachel is just like a nice what if, and kind of, you know, add some value to Sigma. I mean, if I would have played Sigma when it came out, I would have actually probably, you know, hated the shit out of it because I hated Sony. But if I wasn't so biased, I think I would have really and given it a chance. Rachel would have been a highlight. It's just them really executing well, and, you know, kind of playing a little more into the Dead or Alive roots, where you've got that, you know, selection, that library of characters to play as and get to kind of enjoy. And I think Team Ninja was really playing into their talents and strengths when they added this to the game. One thing really quick, for those who are maybe looking at this and, you know, titillates, makes you want to go back. I do recommend there's a setting to toggle the sort of karma counter, and that kind of gives you an idea of how many kills you have in a section, how much time you have left. Gives you an idea of like how much further you need to go. I believe this one was 60 kills, if not 90. And I didn't actually toggle that on the PS PlayStation TV. You also see that the emblem has changed as well. I believe it shows you the is it still Nimpo for Rachel? That's a great question. In that little there's an empty hole on the PS TV where her health bar is, and I believe that's where the Nimpo goes once you've selected it. And I'm not 100% on what it is for the original release for Sigma. So essentially, the simplest way to boil this down is we have the PS3 version, which came out first. Then after that, the PS TV version came out, or so the Vita version is like the most clear way I can express this, which can be played on the Vita version can be played on a PS TV. And then more recently, we've had the PC version come out, and that is an upgrade of the PS TV with a couple of features that were it was sort of like, I think they had to reverse engineer. And we have a little bit of time here, so I'll take a few seconds to kind of foreshadow something a little later. They essentially added some touchpad controls. They added, gyro aiming. You could actually tilt the PlayStation Vita, and you could aim with it. So you had all this sort of all these features that got added into the Vita version to really like sell it. And I mean, for a handheld, this looks great. I mean, the fact that I can record it in 1080p and it still kind of in my mind holds up well enough that like I'd sit there, I might even watch like a playthrough on Vita without like it hurting with the PS TV as an implement for that. I think that part's great, but what happens is that when they did the changes to aiming, I think that when they went to port that version to the Master Collection, it really messed with the ability to just break out of aim. One thing I guess I'll take a second here, I mean some great news, is that I actually got an upgraded Xbox. I got an Xbox Series X, which means that in the next part, I will try to find a way to include a comparison to the sort of upgraded Xbox Series X. The idea is, ultimately this comparison is supposed to stand as sort of a consumer comparison. Oh, by the way, remember to subscribe to the Project Art, The Ultimate Gamer. Thanks to my editor for his yearly upload. Who did this? I gotta fire. Excuse me, one moment. I gotta fire somebody. All right, I think they're fired. Perfect. As I was saying, got the new Xbox Series X, and hopefully I'll be able to compare the upgraded fidelity. I think it's increased resolution, higher frame rate, and is totally compatible with Ninja Gaiden Black. Be phenomenal to compare that in the next section. And in a lot of ways, I expect the next section to essentially be kind of the finality of the comparison. I had more aspirations for this particular video. I wanted to go bigger, longer, but when it comes to comparing this game, also special thanks to this commenter here. It's comments like that make parts come out. I know it's weird how I work, how it seems like it takes forever for me to put something out, but just once in a while, seeing a comment that says, I'd love to see the next part, like, this is great, you do great work, it encourages me a lot. I'm a simple person. So for the next part, I imagine is going to be probably the final part. In particular, I lost a ton of time and momentum on technical difficulties in the early episodes, as well as the initial recordings. I've had to replay this game so many times. Lost footage, lost episodes of lost work, and that's normal. I think that everyone who's ever worked in this medium, and I also find that like every episode like the workload gets heavier. There's more detail, more production value. And I love that. I love to do that. As part of what like drives me to continue to work on content is, the challenging parts of it that make me, really satisfied with the end product. I love that I can just, all this footage is recorded for me. I can just talk over it, and that's phenomenal. But to drive home the point, I really think that in terms of the pace and essentially I think the people have spoken. I don't think there's anything really to defend about the PC version, except for the fact that in the next part, I plan on showing mod support, which I think is arguably one of the most redeeming things. I predicted this from a mile out, but what I didn't realize was what the community would do for each other. And I'm really excited to show off something I think that's pretty much what you would want to see out of the Steam version, if given infinite opportunity to make any change that they wanted. So I'm really excited. The next part to be kind of the closer for the series. I feel like in a lot of ways these also get incredibly boring, sort of repetitive. You're sort of becomes predictable, I guess to say. I haven't seen any really like significant pacing changes beyond adding like whole sections of combat with other characters in terms of item placement, the enemies. I think that Sigma 2 would be a much more interesting comparison to Ninja Gaiden 2. That is, I think, like fundamentally a much more interesting comparison. I'm definitely not cutting out the possibility of doing a few chapters of each of the other games. But in terms of the ambition of doing every single difficulty, at just some point, I just don't think that there's going to be enough of an audience to warrant the amount of effort that is after I've fallen so far behind in the project. So, project's not dead. Oh, I'm the Project Dark. But I will say that when it comes to part of the reasons why I get so discouraged and frustrated is stuff like this. So everything's been great so far. I'm actually super happy with the recording, how everything's lined up, until this cutscene where there is such massive desync in between all the different frame rates, between the audio lineup. It makes no sense. The video can line up, but all of a sudden the audio is not lining up. I don't know enough about the medium to be able to correct these things. I'm trying to find it. Is it a frame behind? Is it losing a frame every once in a while? Is it different? And it's become a incredibly too difficult of a task to get this to all line up. And not to talk over too much of the actual audio. And this is all the PS3 audio for Rachel, because that was the one that lagged the furthest behind. I just wanted to also identify it could be frame differences, specifically because they're in-game cutscenes. But with that being said, I think we're about heading to the end of the part here. I would really recommend Sigma at this point. If you've never played it, please give it a shot. You're doing yourself a disservice, by and large. But before you end off, we have a little extra bonus footage that I needed to go over, and this is why you shouldn't buy the PSTV version of this game to play. So Ayane's voice is in this version. Why did they get rid of it? Thank God they modded support in. So I wanted to show off. In the PSTV version, I cannot aim the bow manually. You cannot. You can't. You need to have a Vita in order, because it's a port. You're just playing a Vita version. I'm trying every button right now. That's what's going on in the footage. I'm about to cast some Nimpo, and there's a special cutscene. Now, what I learned much later is that if you press right or left triggers, if you click those in, you can activate the more powerful version of Nimpo. But with that being said, thank you so much, guys, for watching. It means so much to me. Have yourselves a great rest of your day, and take care.